A single moment can flip an entire NFL storyline, but nobody expected one drop of spit to become the most talked about scandal of the season. It happened so fast, most fans didn't even catch it the first time. A slight turn of the head, a quick motion, and suddenly one of the league's biggest stars was at the center of a storm that spiraled far beyond football. Because this wasn't a normal flag, or a loud argument, or even one of those heated shoves that happen in every rivalry game. This was something different, something personal, something every player, every coach, and every fan immediately understood in their gut. And when the camera zoomed in and slowed the footage down, the truth was impossible to deny. The clip traveled across the internet in minutes. Commentators froze the frame. Former players reacted instantly. Fans took sides. And the league, watching the same video the world was replaying over and over, realized they couldn't ignore it. By the time the final whistle blew, the damage was already spreading. 2 players were ejected. One superstar's reputation took a hit he couldn't outrun. And within hours, a penalty landed that shook the entire locker room. A suspension, a denied appeal, and a financial blow big enough to make headlines on its own. But here's the thing. The real story isn't just the spit. It's what led up to it, what came after it, and what it revealed about the expectations, emotions, and pressure that surround NFL superstars. And that's where everything gets interesting. It started as one of those routine post-play standoffs, the kind fans see dozens of times every Sunday. 2 elite competitors, face to face, talking, bumping, daring the other to blink first. Nothing unusual, until the moment that wasn't supposed to happen actually did. A tiny movement, a barely noticeable jerk forward, and then the reaction that exposed everything. Jalen Ramsey was already turning his head away, ready to walk back to the huddle, when something hit him that made his entire body snap around instantly. His shoulders squared up, his hand clenched, his step shifted from calm to confrontation in a heartbeat. Even without slow motion, you could feel the tension change. Something crossed the line, not a football line, but a human one. Fans watching live couldn't see exactly what set him off, but you could read it in Ramsey's body language. You don't flinch like that for trash talk. You don't explode like that for accidental contact. Something more disrespectful happened, and every player on the field sensed it. The replays hit social media, and there it was, clear as day. A small but unmistakable stream leaving Marr Chase's mouth and heading straight toward Ramsey. No confusion, no debate, no guesswork. The internet didn't need commentary. The video spoke for itself. From that moment, everything changed. Ramsey's punch, the one that got him ejected, suddenly made sense to millions of viewers. The sideline reactions took on new meaning. The heated referee huddle, the penalty announcements, the stunned silence from both teams. It all connected back to that one action caught on camera. And the reaction online was instant. Fans argued about intent. Analysts argued about respect. Former players stepped in with strong opinions about boundaries, pride, and the unwritten rules of the game. It wasn't just a replay anymore. It was a firestorm. But as intense as the public outrage was, the true consequences didn't land until the league office stepped in. And that's when the story took an even sharper turn. When the league office got their hands on the footage, the reaction was immediate. The NFL has seen countless scuffles, blindsides, post-whistle shoves, and even full-on brawls over the years. But spitting? That's different. That's personal in a way that breaks every unwritten rule players still respect. And once the clip was slowed down, enhanced, and verified from multiple angles, the league wasn't going to treat it like a minor infraction. The announcement hit like a hammer. Marr Chase suspended 1 game without pay, no fine, No warning, no conduct letter, just a full-blown suspension. Something rarely handed out for this kind of act. And that's when the real numbers came out. Losing a game check might sound like a slap on the wrist for a superstar, but the fine print revealed something far bigger. Chase wasn't just missing a week of football. He was forfeiting nearly $500,000, the combination of his weekly salary and an active game bonus that pushed the total loss into the six-figure stratosphere. For one split-second decision, he paid the kind of price most people don't see in a lifetime. But the situation took another twist when Chase appealed. Players appeal suspensions all the time. Some win, some lose, but most at least get a chance to reduce the penalty. Chase's camp argued intent, context, emotion, anything that could tilt the decision even slightly. Yet the hearing officer didn't budge. Appeal denied. Suspension upheld. End of story. And the message was loud. The league wasn't just punishing Chase. They were setting a precedent. Because if this wasn't a one-week suspension, what would the next player think they could get away with? The NFL wasn't willing to find out. They wanted a standard, a line no one could cross without paying a heavy price. But the reaction from inside locker rooms wasn't just about money or rules. It became a conversation about respect, pride, and how superstars are expected to carry themselves. And that's where the emotions really began to heat up. The moment the suspension became public, the conversation shifted from what happened to what does this say? Because this wasn't just an on-field dispute anymore. It became a referendum on professionalism, pride, and how far a superstar can push the limits before teammates, coaches, and veterans start speaking up. And nobody spoke louder than Mike Tomlin. His comment arrived with the same calm intensity he carries on the sideline. If someone spits in your face, do what comes natural. It wasn't shouted, dramatized, or dressed up. It was delivered like a truth every player already knows in their bones. And for a lot of players in the league, that single sentence summed up the whole situation better than any rules explanation or disciplinary memo ever could. Inside locker rooms across the league, there was a clear split, not about the act itself, because nearly everyone agreed spitting crosses a line, but about how Chase, a superstar with global recognition, allowed himself to go there. Teammates expect emotion. They expect trash talk. They expect heated moments. But the one thing they don't expect from elite players is something that feels like a personal insult rather than competitive fire. That's where the disappointment came in. Not anger, not hatred, just disappointment. Former players and analysts who admire Chase's talent couldn't understand why a player of his stature, one of the league's brightest young stars, would risk his image and his team's momentum for a moment of frustration. Even Bengals players, while protective publicly, were reportedly stunned behind the scenes. Losing him for a week wasn't just inconvenient. It weakened the team at a pivotal point in the season. And then there was the other side of the equation, Jalen Ramsey. Some people questioned the punch, others defended it. But inside NFL circles, most players understood Ramsey instantly. They saw his reaction as instinct, the kind that comes from years of competition and deep, unspoken rules about respect. One action, two perspectives, and a ripple effect that hit every level of the league. But to understand how big this really was, you have to look at what came next, the rulebook, the history, and why this punishment shocked so many players. To really understand why Ja'Marr Chase's punishment shook so many people, you have to look past the headlines and into the league's history. Because while the NFL has fined players for almost every imaginable act, fights, taunts, late hits, even uniform violations, suspending someone for spitting is extremely rare. In fact, when fans started digging, they realized the league has almost never handed down a one-game suspension for this specific violation. Normally, spitting falls under unsportsmanlike conduct. Usually it means a fine, A painful one, sure, but still just a fine. So why the sudden escalation? The answer sits at the intersection of three forces: optics, precedent, and timing. First, optics. In today's world, every moment is captured, clipped, slowed down, zoomed in, and posted within seconds. The league can't pretend something didn't happen when millions of fans are analyzing it frame by frame. Once the clip blew up online, ignoring it would have looked like the NFL was excusing a blatant act of disrespect, something the public wouldn't tolerate. Second, precedent. The league knows that if they allow a superstar to get away with spitting for a small fine, they're sending a message. This is just part of the game. And that's the last thing they want. Because once boundaries slip, players push further. The NFL wanted to plant a flag in the ground. This is the line. Then comes timing. This incident didn't happen in a quiet preseason. It happened in a rivalry game, during a season where tension, emotions, and pressure were already sky high. Every small incident in a heated matchup becomes amplified. And when you add two elite players, names the entire football world recognizes, the league's reaction becomes even louder. So when the suspension landed, it wasn't just about Jamar Chase. It was about sending a message to the entire NFL. No matter who you are, this kind of act won't be brushed aside. But while the rulebook explained the punishment, it didn't explain what came next. The deeper impact on Chase's image, his locker room, and the perception of what a superstar is supposed to be. And that's where things become far more personal. Losing $500,000 hurts, but for Jamar Chase, the financial hit wasn't the part that stung the deepest. Money comes back, game checks come back, production comes back. But reputation? That's the one thing players can't buy back once the public decides to shift the narrative. And the shift happened instantly. Before the incident, Chase was viewed as one of the league's most electric young stars, a player who combined talent, swagger, explosiveness, and unquestioned big game ability. Fans love the confidence, analysts love the consistency, teammates love the fire. He was the kind of player a franchise could anchor its identity around. But after the spit, everything felt slightly different. Not destroyed, not ruined, just different. Because when a player reaches superstar status, the expectations change. Fans forgive mistakes, but they don't forget patterns. And when a star crosses a line, people start asking harder questions. Was this frustration? Was this ego? Was this disrespect boiling over? Or was this something deeper? A sign of pressure getting to him? Inside the Bengals locker room, the mood reportedly landed somewhere between surprise and disappointment, not anger. Because players understand how emotions spike in heated moments, but disappointment that the team's offensive centerpiece would let something so small turn into something so costly. Losing Chase for a week doesn't just weaken the offense, it forces the entire team to adjust. Then there's the image factor. Brands notice this stuff. Endorsement companies track public sentiment closely. While nobody was rushing to cut ties, Chase is far too valuable for that. The incident certainly raised eyebrows. A superstar's public persona is a delicate balance. You can be fiery, edgy, intense, but you can't look reckless. And here's the part fans often miss. Players care deeply about how they're viewed by other players. For many veterans around the league, this wasn't about football. It was about respect. The emotional hit of disappointing peers often cuts deeper than losing money or facing suspension. But Chase wasn't the only one affected. On the other side of that moment stood Jalen Ramsey. And his reaction sparked an entirely different conversation about pride, instinct, and the unwritten rules of competition. If Jamar Chase's action created the controversy, Jalen Ramsey's reaction gave it fuel. And inside NFL circles, the way Ramsey responded wasn't confusing. It was expected. Because for players who've spent their entire lives competing at the highest level, There are rules written in ink and rules written in bone. And spitting on someone, that's the kind that hits bone. Ramsey didn't wait for interpretation. He didn't look around for confirmation. His body reacted before his mind had time to process. One moment, he was turning away, trying to let the play move on. The next, he snapped back like he'd been hit with something invisible, but unmistakably disrespectful. His hand came up. His posture stiffened. The punch that followed wasn't calculated. It was instinct. Some fans questioned why Ramsey swung at all. Players didn't. Most veterans watching the clip had the same reaction. You can't let that slide. Even players who don't like Ramsey, and he has plenty of rivals, understood exactly why he reacted the way he did. This wasn't trash talk. This wasn't aggression hidden inside a football play. This was something personal, something that stripped the game away for a moment and pulled two competitors into a very real, very raw human space. Even Mike Tomlin's comment, "Do what comes natural," framed the situation with a clarity only a seasoned coach understands. In football, there are rules set by the league, and there are rules set by respect. When the second one breaks, players act. That's the culture. Always has been. But here's where it gets more complicated. Ramsey still paid the price. He was ejected. He was criticized by some who believed he should have shown restraint. He faced questions about professionalism, even though many believed he was the one disrespected. Yet for most people inside the league, the punch didn't define him. Chase's action did. Ramsey's response became a symbol of what happens when boundaries collapse. And whether right or wrong by rulebook standards, the emotional truth was obvious. He reacted the way almost any competitor would. Still, the story didn't end with instinct and emotions. Because when the dust settled, the bigger conversation wasn't about the spit, the punch, or the penalty. It was about what this moment revealed about the league, the culture, and the power of a single viral clip. When the noise around the suspension finally settled, it became clear this moment had grown far beyond Chase and Jalen Ramsey. What started as a heated exchange in a rivalry game had turned into a conversation about something much larger. How the modern NFL handles behavior in an era where every second is recorded, dissected, and replayed across the world before the players even reach the locker room. Years ago, an incident like this might have been shrugged off, maybe a fine, maybe a brief statement, and then football moved on. But today, the camera angle that caught the spit didn't just show what happened, it shaped how the entire world interpreted it. One clip turned into a dozen slowed-down versions, each frame analyzed like evidence in a courtroom. Every fan became a judge. Every former player became an expert witness. Every commentator added extra weight to a moment that might have otherwise faded into the background. And the league realized something important. You can't hide from viral moments anymore. You can only respond to them. That's why the suspension mattered. It wasn't just about punishment. It was the NFL drawing a line that matched the expectations of the modern audience. A message that behavior crossing a personal boundary, especially one caught so clearly, won't be brushed aside with a standard fine. Whether fans agreed or not, the league made it clear. This act demanded a bigger consequence, but the cultural impact goes deeper. It forced players to reflect on how quickly an emotional reaction can become a national headline. It pushed teams to rethink accountability, and it reminded everyone that even superstars, with all the perks and praise that come with fame, are still held to a higher standard in moments where the eyes of millions are locked in. In the end, the spit became more than an incident. It became a catalyst. A mirror held up to the league, the players, and the fans, showing how fragile reputations can be, how fast narratives form, and how powerful a single second of footage can become. And that's the real story here. One small moment turned into a defining reminder of the NFL's new reality. In the end, This entire incident proves something the NFL has always known but rarely says out loud. The smallest moments often carry the biggest consequences. A few seconds of frustration, a single lapse in judgment, one action that crossed a line players instinctively know not to approach, and suddenly, the ripples spread far beyond the field. Jamar Chase didn't just make a mistake. He stepped into a spotlight that magnifies everything, especially when you're one of the league's brightest stars. And that's the reality for modern athletes. Every gesture, every expression, every emotional reaction is captured, saved, slowed down, and broadcast to millions of people who don't just watch the game. They analyze it. They rewind it. They debate it. One moment in a heated rivalry can overshadow an entire season of excellence. Not because the player changed, but because the click became bigger than the context. But hidden within all the noise, all the outrage, and all the headlines lies a simple truth. This was a human moment. A moment born from intensity, adrenaline, pride, and emotion. The same ingredients that fuel every great competitor. It doesn't excuse the action, and it doesn't erase the consequences, but it does remind us that even superstars are still human. They feel pressure, they get provoked, they react. For Jalen Ramsey, it was a test of composure in a moment of disrespect. For Chase, it was a hard lesson in how quickly a decision can turn into a storyline. For the league, it was a chance to reinforce a standard. And for fans, it was a reminder that behind every highlight and every headline is a complicated, emotional world that most people never see. When the season moves on and new stories take over the news cycle, this moment will still linger. Not because of the spit itself, but because of what it revealed about pride, respect, and the price of losing control under the brightest lights in sports. And as the next rivalry game approaches, everyone will remember one thing. Some lines can't be crossed, not in this league and not in front of the entire world.